Sorry, guys, had a little technical difficulty there. Try to patch this together, and hopefully it sounds good at the end. So, North Carolina. So, when this game came onto the schedule a few years ago, we got an email from Monmouth Athletics. It was one of the really most exciting sports moments I've had in my life. I mean, I couldn't believe we were about to have Carolina on our campus. And, I've been to Yankee playoff games. I've been to Cowboy Giant late season games in the snow, NBA playoff games. Like, I've been to games. And, this was the one I've been looking most forward to since I've been a fan of any sport. Monmouth is it's what I do. This is what I live and breathe. Like, if the Yankees lose, if regular season game, the Cowboys lose a regular season game, like it just doesn't compare to the same sting of any Monmouth loss. So, you know, you look at my house and my office at school, it's all Monmouth stuff everywhere. The basement's going down, the steps going to my basement are navy and gray and say, let's go Hawks going down the side. Like, this is like my team. This is what I do. So when King Rice got to Monmouth, I questioned whether maybe one day we could get a Carolina home game. And people said I was absolutely out of my mind for even thinking that was a possibility. Well, 9 or 10 years later, it happened. It was happening. And I can't tell you how excited I was. And, flash forward to the COVID pandemic, it all begins. Roy Williams comes out and says, hold on, guys. No, we'll honor the game next year. No big deal. We got you guys. Okay, great. Appreciate it, Roy. Well, the problem is Roy Williams retired. He left. King Rice interviews for the job, doesn't get it. And they enter Hubert Davis into the Carolina job. Remember that name. I'm like, all right, him and King are boys. They go way back. We're good. We'll get the game. They hire Carolina blood. It's a good thing. Except it wasn't. Because when UNC's schedule came out on Twitter, Monmouth was nowhere to be found. I thought it might have been a mistake or an overlooked thing on their part. But when King came out in the Asbury Park Press and said he was very disappointed and didn't know why they weren't coming, but he sounded pissed in the article, I knew it was over. And, Hubert Davis, you are an embarrassment. Like, if you ask any college basketball analyst or coach or fan or team, anyone involved, this is an embarrassing situation for you. It is your brother, your teammate, someone you care about and that cares about you, that you're doing this to. I mean, you are taking away the biggest home game and opportunity in the history of your friend's program at his school where he is a head coach. You're taking that away after it was multiple times promised to him. And I just don't understand why he did it. I think he should be a man and come out and say why he did it. You're not facing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of Monmouth alumni. There's 3,000 people at the basketball games and a bit less than 1,000 in the Facebook group, I think. So you're not facing this, Penn State or Michigan Army. Like, it's us. Like, face us, tell us what happened, and admit to why you're not coming. So until then, Hubert Davis, I hope your team fails so badly that your stint in Chapel Hill is the quickest in the history of the program. I hope every recruit you have is a total bust and that you exit the ACC tournament in the first round every year and never even sniff the NIT tournament. You are an embarrassment. And I don't know how they handled this game is so bad, but I'm just envisioning what the spectacle would be at West Long Branch, where you have Carolina blue shirts everywhere and Mama shirts everywhere, and the fans together for that kind of game, that environment. It would have been amazing to watch. We had Villanova, which was amazing, and Monmouth wasn't great back then, but to have a decent Monmouth team versus a great Carolina team and that building together, it would have been electric. It would have been a great, great experience for everyone. Even if we lost by 40, it would have been such a cool experience. And I just don't understand the move taking it away because the game was there and you added other games onto your schedule that weren't there before. So what is the harm in playing it? You're going to play a couple garbage teams anyway from lower conferences. Why not play Monmouth, who is not garbage, but an average to above average mid-major team? And maybe we have a great season and it's a decent win on your resume. Maybe it's a top 125 win, and maybe it's not a quadrant 4. Like, it might be a decent win in the end. So I don't understand the move by Hubert Davis. But in the end, all I have to say after that is you completely suck. And I hope you have absolutely no success. And I know that Dean Smith is rolling over in his grave right now for the way you treated your Carolina family, quote unquote, King Rice and the guys at Monmouth. It's terrible what you did, and you should be a man and come out and explain why you did what you did. Either way, you're garbage, all right? Mark, all yours.
Yeah, Hubert Davis. As a kid, I was a huge Knicks fan. Uh, Growing up, John Starks was my favorite player. Hubert Davis was his backup. J.R. Reed was on some of those '90s Knicks teams, and these guys. When you're a kid, you look up to them and they're heroes. And unfortunately, heroes become villains. And Hubert Davis is the ultimate villain to everyone in West Long Branch and everyone affiliated with the Monmouth University, not even Monmouth University basketball program, just anyone affiliated with Monmouth University, because that's how big North Carolina basketball coming for a visit would have been. It would have outstretched way beyond just those 883 people on the Facebook page and however many season ticket holders. And it's just, I've had it with the North Carolina family and the North Carolina way.
I don't want to hear it anymore.
No,
I don't want to hear about Carolina anymore. I really don't.
no. In my opinion, that's bullshit, and that went away and retired with Roy Williams, because obviously Hubert Davis doesn't do things the way that North Carolina, as we were told, does things. So, I'm with you. I'm going to be the biggest Duke fan there is when Duke plays North Carolina those 2 times this year. And Hubert Davis, we do not wish you well at all. And I know you had said, and I agree, I hope that King puts away the Carolina blue tie and suit jacket this year.
Yep. Yep. That's it for me. That's it.
Looking at the MAC schedule, we got some positives, some negatives. Positive, you get the Buffalo trip done early, the 3rd and the 5th. It's a Friday, Sunday, early December. I like getting the Buffalo trip done early. Chances of getting stuck in a snowstorm or dealing with, negative temperatures are lower. And Ryan has in his notes here that they should send the kids to the Monday Night Football game, Pats at Bills, for the full Buffalo experience. After today's Bills loss to the Jaguars, I'm just going to move quickly on from that subject, as I have quite the sour taste in my mouth. Then you get Ryder and St. Peter's at home on Friday nights with students on campus. So that's great. 2 Jersey rivalry games, 2 teams that I think will be up there with Monmouth among the contenders, trying to finally derail Iona. Speaking of Iona, we have 2 huge negatives. Both the Iona and Siena home games are in the middle of winter break. No students, and the students don't get to be there for arguably the biggest MAC home game of the year and one of the biggest. And everybody's chasing Iona. They're the gold standard. Went from Cluse right to Slick Rick, and they continue to win those MAC championships. And Siena, everybody knows our feeling on Siena. That Siena fan base, there's something else, Ryan. Last year, King Rice took every opportunity he could to speak highly of Pickett and Camper. Siena had the top 2 players in the whole conference. Well, Camper went pro after his 4 years, just like Deion Hammond. And hey, you know what? You can't say anything about that as a fan. You should be really happy for the young man. Graduated, had a great career. I believe that he is in a training camp roster in the G League. And Pickett left and transferred to Penn State. All of a sudden, you hear the Siena fans talking about the liabilities in each of their games, and that Pickett didn't have himself in shape, and that their transfer, Anthony Gaines from Northwestern, is going to be a better version of what Manny Camper was. And I mean, you don't do that. Like, all of a sudden, you're going to turn your back on 2 guys who gave you 4 years. But hey, that's how the Siena fan base goes. You have to go to Dratty on a Friday night with students in session. That's going to be a daunting task. Make or break year for Steve Masiello. 1 through 8, 1 through 10. Second most talented roster in the MAC behind Iona. But Steve hasn't been able to put it together and have that magic like he did early in our years in the MAC. It'll be interesting because either way, it's not going to be good for Monmouth. If Steve puts it together this year, then they move back into being contender status probably again for the following year, this year and the following year. If he doesn't put it together, very attractive job, and they'll probably get a lot of really, really good, associate head coaches, young head coaches, assistants at big levels going for that job. And of course, we hate the NFL Sunday games. You should never go up against the NFL. The Iona game, the Manhattan game, the Niagara game are all going to draw less than they would if it was on a Saturday matinee. And there's away games on Sunday, which is no good for those programs as well. I know Ryan's going to really get a kick out of this. The MAC likes to do the Friday, Sunday because it allows them to get better officials.
That's really why?
That is the reason.
Wait. That's why we're Sunday.
That's why it's Friday, Sunday. So, normally people's date night with their wife or their girlfriend or, and Sunday football. Nope. You got your MAC games there because we get these outstanding officials on Fridays and Sundays.
Wow. I mean, I ran a basketball league for a few years with men's league and kids leagues. And I got some guys there that aren't that great. Some are pretty good, actually. But the guys there can't be worse than the guys in the MAC. So I don't want to hear this of no availability on Saturday because the guys we get, I mean, King Rice probably has about 5 years taken off of his life because of the stress of these MAC officials. So I don't want to hear that.
Worst call of all time was the technical on Josh James in the MAC championship after AJ English talked shit to him the entire time. Josh makes one layup, turns and says something, gets teed up immediately, totally changed the momentum of that game. That is a microcosm of what MAC officiating is. It's inconsistent. The only thing consistent about MAC officiating is that it's consistently bad.
It's just bad. It's bad.
Give me the Thursday, Saturday. Give me the guys who used to officiate the NEC games on Thursday, Saturday, and free up my NFL Sundays. And get more people in the buildings.
You know what's bad is that my wife knows the refs are bad, but she actually knows by face which ones are the worst. Like, There's one guy we get at Ryder all the time. There's one guy we get for like half of our home games. And there's like 2 or 3 where she picks them out when we get into the arena. And she's like, oh, no, that guy tonight. Like, my wife knows how bad and who the refs are that are really bad. Like, that's when you know, as a conference, you're struggling with refs. Like, I mean, Nicole's a pretty avid fan. Like, she gets louder than I do sometimes at these games. She's become a hawk after going to Ryder. Now she's got all mama stuff. But I mean, you just have a choice there. Sorry, you're not doing the cranberry red in my house. But either way, I mean, she knows which officials are really bad. I'm like, wow, like that. I mean, wow. That's great.
So Ryan, why don't you touch on our returnees, and then I'll quickly touch on the newcomers to get everybody up to speed with what's going to be a very large roster.
So from what it's looking like, we're thinking that odds are the lineup is looking like Shavar, Pappas, McClary, Ruddy, and Miller. It looks like we are probably going 2 bigs this year, which we're not used to because typically we've had McClary and Malik and these undersized 4s and 5s before. But now you have 3 very good guards, and you have Ruddy and Miller. Ruddy has been a 5, but typically he's a 4. So now he can kind of move around and do some things. And in practice, he looked really good last week. He looks like he's gotten even stronger. And Walker Miller, 6'11" giant from North Carolina. But now you have Miles Ruth, who was one of the best players on the Hawks last year, is now the backup point guard. Now, he caused chaos for the best guards in the conference while playing defense. Now he's going to cause chaos for the backup unit, the second unit guys. Imagine trying to dribble the ball up the court as a second unit guy against Miles Ruth. I mean, he's going to get 4 steals a game. I mean,
so Ryan, one interesting thing as I start to look at this roster is Shavar Reynolds was one of the top individual defenders in the whole Big East. Marcus McClary's been consistently, a top 10 individual defender in the MAC the last few years. Miles Ruth had to be, if you polled the point guards in the MAC last year on who they didn't want guarding them, he probably would have been one of the top 3 guys that they said. And Sam
Absolutely.
Chapu's a pest too. So the plethora of perimeter and guard defenders that King Rice can throw at you could really wear down some of the high scoring guards in the MAC.
I mean, Sam Chapu's your third string point guard. I mean, he's your third string point guard, and he'd be starting at a couple of these teams. So, I mean, the depth is unreal. Miles Foster, again, last year, we said, if he changes his body, he'll be a true weapon. So we'll see what he looks like in that first game. But that guy's got a great touch around the rim. If he develops a little bit more of a jump shot from 10 to 15 feet, that'd be great. But, I mean, Foster is a guy you got to keep your eye on. As a second unit guy, it's going to cause a lot of problems for Mac Biggs. Then you have Jarvis Vaughn. Hopefully, he'll be healthy this year. You have Clement Vogel coming back. You have Holmstrom. We'll see how many minutes he gets this year. Hopefully, he takes another step up. Just those 10 or 11 guys, that's a deep roster. And then I'm going to let you go into the freshmen. But, I mean, overall, that's a really, really deep team that's going to cause a lot of problems. And I know some people have us between 4th and 5th typically as where they rank us in the conference. One paper had a 7th, which I really can't believe that. I think you won't even have us lower than 7th, but that's a really deep team, and we haven't even touched in the freshman, which you're going to do now.
Yeah, and I think it might be a tough year for the freshmen to break through and have big roles because of the fact that there are so many returnees. And this is going to be a theme probably across low and mid-major basketball between immediate eligible all transfers who haven't transferred before, 5th-year COVID years being granted to return, and then the amount of guys who just generally come back in low and mid-major basketball. Because if you look at the portal, after that carousel went around, some guys didn't have a place in Division I basketball anymore. So when you look at it, you have 5 true freshman newcomers. You have Crowley, big, 6'10", 240, solid. His body definitely developed in his prep year. He averaged 6 and 6 for the Ireland under-20 national team in 2019 in the Euro Championships. I think he's a project big man with some upside, but it might be tough to break through when you got Walker Miller and you got Avuga, and then you got Vaughn and Foster and Ruddy. There's a lot of guys who've already been here as bigs. So, his best years are probably down the line. Sam Fagan, same thing. We went over all those guards. Sam Fagan is a heady short conference guard, started 4 years for his dad at Neptune, had a bad knee injury that slowed some of his sophomore and junior years, but he's a high IQ kid and a big time 3-point shooter. And then you got 2 really, really interesting wings, like really interesting. You got Jaden Doyle, 6'5", super athletic. He had the Sports Center top 10 dunk from about the free throw line already in a Monmouth practice. Good for Gary Kowal for throwing that out there and getting it nationally recognized.
Top 10 before you even play a game.
Yeah, before you even play a game, top 10. He played at South Kent Prep School, which is big time powerhouse program. Sent countless players Division I and all the way to the NBA. He had Sam Fagan and Crowley, I believe Monmouth were their only Division I offers. Sam did commit very early to Monmouth, so there might have been more. And I do believe that he's a kid that you were able to get, and he might not have had the offers that would have come had he not missed so much time with that knee injury. And then, of course, last year with the COVID year of high school basketball limiting the amount of exposure. So anyway, Jaden Doyle, he averaged over 13 a game, 4 rebounds, 2 steals for South Kent. He had really good offers: Rhode Island, Miami of Ohio, Tulsa, UNC Wilmington, East Tennessee State. I want to see it's interesting. On tape, he has a very smooth and solid offensive arsenal that doesn't go too fast, but then he's got this freakish athleticism. He's a kid that could project to be a big time player as an upperclassman at Monmouth. And then they brought in another kid, and probably as high as I am on Doyle, I'm even higher on this kid. This is my favorite player in the class, and he was a late signee to Ron Allen, 6'4", 6'5", lefty, averaged, ready for this, Ryan, 33.6 points per game and 8.8 rebounds per game, and 5 assists, and shot 63% from the field.
What league was he playing in?
Yeah. And they say New York City is the tougher leagues, but he just might be that good. He's a bulldog. He's a tough kid. He's crafty. He's long. He's athletic. He needs to improve the outside shooting for the D1 level. But, and it's so interesting because we've heard so much about going back to the two bigs. I see him in that big guard, undersized power forward spot at Monmouth. He had offers from UMass, Kent State, and Manhattan. And we know Steve Masiello, for the most part, he brings in high talent kids. Then we're looking at the two grad transfers, and really, these are the two guys you're looking at to take Monmouth over the hump this year. You got Walker Miller, nearly 7-footer, really didn't play much in his 4 years at UNC, but he's moving down quite a few levels in the MAC. He was going to go to Dartmouth, then he decommitted. He also had an offer from Bucknell, who's had a ton of good big guys at the mid-major level. He just decided to follow in his brother's footsteps, walking on at the North Carolina, doing it the family way. He's a 7-footer from a power conference, and the last guy to come to Monmouth with similar credentials, Ryan, was Phil Waite from St. John's. What do you think? Do you think that Miller can have a similar impact or an even bigger impact than Big Phil had during his time at Monmouth?
I mean, from everything we saw online and different people we've spoken to, it seems like Miller is the real deal. He's not just some walk-on. He can actually play basketball. And, it seems like he may be a starter for Monmouth and at the very least get a lot of minutes. So, I mean, Phil Waite was solid. I mean, he really was limited. He was just kind of a big 7'1" dude. I feel like Miller may actually be the real deal and be able to put some minutes on the board and give some production. But going back to Allen for a minute, I wonder if, he could be almost like an Ed Waite type, where he's a little bit undersized, but he can hit the shot here and there, but he's really a strong, undersized forward.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a more athletic version of Marcus McClary.
Okay.
With obviously more upside to develop the offensive game. Maybe he could end up being like Malik Martin was. Like, I think he's more that role than Ed Waite was a little bit more of a bruiser. And so I don't think that it's wrong to say that Walker Miller might hold the keys as the X factor for if Monmouth is going to make the NCAA tournament or not.
I think that's fair. Definitely fair.
And then we go to a guy, probably the biggest recruiting win of King Rice's career.
Ever.
I mean, this kid was Shavar Reynolds. First of all, before I even get into who he is as a basketball player, Shavar Reynolds as a person blows you away when you meet him. He's got a smile that lights up a room. He has the type of infectious personality that can dominate a whole arena before he's even touched the basketball, like Justin Robinson did. I remember seeing him down in the Jersey Shore Basketball League a couple of years ago when he was going into or exiting his freshman year of Seton Hall, and everybody loved him. I mean, everybody from all the different teams, everybody wanted to go up and, the other basketball players loved him. They all wanted to talk to Shavar. They all wanted, dab up Shavar. So right away, you could tell he's a natural born leader. At Seton Hall, he's a similar story to George. He was a walk-on, and he made it all the way to the starting point guard at Seton Hall. Last year, almost 8 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, over 4 assists, and almost 2 steals. Finished the season ranked 8th in the Big East in assists, 2nd in steals, and 5th in assist to turnover ratio. Shavar has all the makings of a MAC superstar, not a star, a superstar. Like, we're talking MAC Player of the Year. He's an elite on-ball defender, a knockdown three-point shooter, a very good athlete, high IQ, explosive first step. And like I said, for as good of a basketball player as he is, he might even be a better person. I could not have picked a better fit for Monmouth coming out of what was a loaded transfer portal. I love adding 2 fifth-year guys. Like I said, Shavar could be MAC Player of the Year. Miller could be a huge piece. He could be the swing piece. They have to find a bench scorer. So someone off the bench needs to give them points. I know you're really high on Foster off the bench as a scorer, and then round out that rotation between veterans and youngsters, which will be important during a challenging non-conference slate. Moving to the too big approach per Edelson's interview with King Rice actually worries me, as it takes away from the identity this team has had going back to the days of guys playing the four like Deion Jones, Hornbeak, Josh James, Austin Tillman, then Marcus McClary and Malik Martin. Because they were over those years where they were playing that small ball format, they were near the leader in the nation in pace of play. So if you're playing two bigs, you're probably not going to play that fast because it's just not as possible. But hopefully that too big approach will be successful, a la Diego Quinn, Mustafa Traore in their run to the MAC title game.
Yeah, it's certainly not a season where it's going to be boring. Like, there's a lot to talk about with this team. There are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of new pieces, and a lot of excitement. There should be a ton of excitement around this team, and that's part of why we do the podcast, because we want to inform everybody of what this team is going to look like. We don't want to be the homers and say every year they're going to be the best team in the conference. We want to shoot straight with you guys, but we also want to show you the optimism and the good about this team, because not everybody always knows how they're going to be. So that's part of why we talk to you guys, is because not everybody knows how good these teams can be. And this is a really, really solid Monmouth team on paper. And from what we saw in practice last week, without giving too much away, they look pretty solid in person too. And, I'm pretty excited to watch this team play. Let's see. Before we get going, King Rice did get a contract extension. We know Monmouth loves him. We know he loves Monmouth. He interviewed for the Carolina job. We didn't think he was going to get it, but there were talks about him joining as an assistant coach, which would possibly pay close to, or if not more than, Monmouth for a head coaching job, which, when you actually think about cost of living in North Carolina, it's a hell of a lot cheaper, and that contract actually gets boosted up a little bit. But, we're happy to have King Rice back. We spoke with him last week. We appreciated him talking to us after practice for 15, 20 minutes, telling us stories and all kinds of stuff that we never would have heard. And, he really was great with us last week, and we appreciate talking to him. But, again, congrats to King on the extension. It's a big deal for him in the program.
Feels like every couple of years another one of those extensions come for him. So good for him. Well deserved.
Listen, if he keeps winning games, hopefully eventually he gets us to the tournament, and hopefully that's this year. But, it's coming. It is coming. It's just taking longer than we expected. So very quickly, before going into kind of the overlook of the MAC for the last couple minutes, I did want to shout out a couple of different things from Monmouth real quick. Football is just dominating right now. They are undefeated in the Big South, and it looks like they are on a collision course with, I believe, Kennesaw State, who is also 5-0, and they play each other, as always, the last week of the regular season, which is kind of the de facto Big South championship, which they just happen to get every year because no one really upsets anybody in that conference. It looks like Monmouth, Kennesaw State is going to happen in a few weeks for the championship. So good luck to the football team. We updating you guys on them on our next podcast. Hopefully they keep winning games. Women's soccer wins another MAC championship today in dominating fashion. I think it was 4-0. I saw an Instagram post of the one goal, the girl almost took out the back of the net. It was like a laser. So women's soccer just continuing their domination in that conference. They are unbelievable every year. Great job by, I think it's still Chrissy Turner's the coach there. So great job by the women's team. And men's soccer won today on basically a walk-off with a second left today in the MAC quarterfinals. So good job by all our fall sports teams, and hopefully we're bringing home more championships to Monmouth, and hopefully basketball is not too far behind following you guys lifting up a trophy. But either way, great job by the fall sports teams.
Go ahead, Ryan, I just want to jump in real quick. As you're saying, we got teams that play in the America East. We have teams that play in the Big South. We would be remiss if we don't touch on this. Lately, it's come out that the Colonial Athletic Association is losing James Madison and is looking to possibly add a more northeast team.
Uh-oh.
And two teams that came up are Fairfield and Monmouth. And the one big thing that they said could be a selling point for Monmouth, in addition to Division I basketball team, great arena, great facilities, location, what the Colonial is rumored to be doing is to be adding and then splitting into a North and a South division. So Monmouth would be grouped with Northeastern, Hofstra, Delaware, Drexel, and Towson, I believe. It would be really good, from what I understand, for the football team, because the football team would then move up into the Colonial, which is, and I know we have a lot of people listening who follow all the different sports, so I thought we really should touch on this. Colonial gets sometimes 3 bids to the FCS playoffs, whereas the Big South, it's just one. And historically, the Colonial has been a better rated basketball league than the MAC as well, where they've actually had multi-bids. So I'd love to hear your take on hoping to move the 2 flagship programs in the university, football and basketball, into one higher league.
Yeah, I mean, football, I would definitely like it. It just gives you some type of rivalry, some type of local games where you can actually attend the games in person. Because right now we're playing teams in South Carolina, Virginia, Florida, Alabama. Like, you can't form a rivalry when you're in New Jersey with a team from North Alabama. Like, it's just not as exciting. Obviously, Kennesaw State is the rival now because they're really good. It was Charleston Southern and Coastal Carolina before they
Yeah,
left.
Coastal Carolina went from the Big South to top 25 in the FBS in like 2 years.
So, I think it'd be a great move for football, playing Delaware and a couple of schools that are a little bit closer.
Yeah, Villanova actually is in the Colonial for football, which is kind of cool.
Right. So I think for football, it's a great move. Basketball, it's definitely a step up. I would miss the Rider game and things like that are a little bit closer to attend, but overall, there's still some closer games in the Colonial. So I don't know. I would kind of like the move. I'm not opposed to it. I have to do a little more research on it. I did see the same article. I know we were talking about it a little bit. But I don't think it would be a bad move for Monmouth. I know academically, I think we're probably a step down some of these schools, some of these state schools with more funding and that are just bigger schools that are older than we are and bigger than we are. But overall, I don't think it would be a bad move for Monmouth. So we'll have to see what happens there. Keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I think all Monmouth fans should keep an eye on that. And for the record, I'll go out on the podcast and say, and no disrespect to any of the great people we've met at the MAC and the other fans. I think it would be a great move to have the 2 flagship programs of Monmouth, and hopefully as many sports as possible all in the same league. Quickly, just touching on the MAC. The MAC's going to be a much stronger conference this year than in recent years. During the Robinson years and then during some other years, there would always be like 1 or 2 teams that really dragged down the the RPI of the MAC. They were like really bad, 5-25, and Marist was really bad like that for a while. Niagara had a run like that. There really isn't. Canisius seems to be a little less strong than the rest of the teams, but I don't think they're bottom 40 team in Division I.
They're not bad. Like they're not like
right.
a 3-17 MAC bad, but they're probably like a 6-14 type of team. Like they're not terrible.
Right. So you're talking about many returnees and transfers coming into the league versus over the last few years, we'd have a lot of top guys leaving. And really cool, Demencio Vaughn is bouncing back to Ryder, and Kevin Marfo is bouncing back to Quinnipiac. Really cool for those teams. Nightmare for Monmouth. Iona is far and away the favorite, but they are not going 20-0. Okay, I've seen people say this, that they're going 20-0. It's
happening.
not going to happen. If
Not
Justin
happening.
Robinson and his crew did not go 20-0 in a league that probably wasn't as strong as this league is from 1 to 11, it is not happening. No matter, Rick Pitino might be top 10 college basketball coach of all time, and they might have far and away the top, 1 through 7 rated roster in the league. They're not going 20-0. St. Peter's probably cemented in right now as the top contender after they were boosted by an extremely late return of KC and Defo. He actually called Shaheen Holloway, I believe the story said, days after classes started. And because he wasn't vaccinated, he couldn't even participate with anything on campus. He had to do remote learning for a month. He couldn't do any workouts or any practices. And then finally is getting back up to speed. But he's a workhorse, so I'm sure he'll be in great shape immediately. And after that, like 3 through 10, you're going a whole bunch of teams that could argue that they could be anywhere from 2 through 11 in the final standings this year. And I'm sure, we had that awesome roundtable discussion last March, which was so great. If we had the Robinson twins here to sell us on Quinnipiac, or we had Kelly to tell us about Siena and all those guys that car salesman Carm has brought in as transfers, or if we had Fairfield Frank on here, like everybody could sell you on why their team is going to stay out of one of those play-in games in Atlantic City. And honestly, as informed for the MAC as you and I are, Ryan, we really couldn't shoot them down per se. Maybe
No,
Canisius
they
fans,
all have an argument.
That's it. Like everybody has an argument. And I think every night's going to be a battle, but when you're going to battle with grown men, as Monmouth has on the top of their roster, versus 18, 19-year-olds, that'll really help a ton.
Like personally, I think Canisius is probably at the bottom, and then Niagara and Marist are probably after that. But even Niagara can't count out with Greg Paulus and what he's got. Marist, John Dunn's turned that program around and is doing a good job. You can't count him out any night. Yeah, Fairfield bringing some guys back. They're solid. Quinnipiac gets their guy back. Marfo. Manhattan's loading up. Siena's coming back with some great transfers. Ryder's bringing great guys in. Mama's doing what we just talked about. St. Peter's brings the Defo back, and you got Iona. I mean, where are the cupcakes? Like, I mean, there are no easy games there. And, maybe Iona wins 14, 15, 16. But I'll tell you what, second place in the MAC, I mean, it might be like, there might be 8 teams between like 8 and 12 and 11 and 9. Like, it's just going to be like a cluster in the middle. And there's just going to be very little separating. And it won't shock me to see in Atlantic City, like a 6th seed playing a 7th seed in the final. Like, it's just going to be like a wacky year because it's such a good, deep league that I think more people around the country will start paying attention to because it's going to be a really, really talented league.
Yep. And because we're running out of time here, I won't go through my official picks, but I'll put them out on Twitter on opening night and on the Facebook page so everyone could see where I'm at with the MAC. But, quick snapshot, I think that Iona is the overwhelming favorite. And then I think you have a group of teams that could win the MAC championship in St. Peter's, Monmouth, Ryder, and Siena. And who knows? There could be more. But, if I'm looking at my top tier is Iona, and then my tier 2, I have those 4 teams as the teams I think could really challenge. And I'll fill in the rest of the gaps for everybody on Tuesday before I settle in to watch Monmouth at Charlotte on some network. I don't even think we have that yet.
I don't know where that's going to be.
Nope, we don't know where it's going to be. But you know what? If you're at Charlotte, you could have easily went to Chapel Hill too. So shame on UNC.
Man. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Tuesday, 7 o'clock is the first game at Charlotte. We'll try to get to you on Twitter with whatever network they're going to use or website or link or whatever they're going to do. Hopefully, we can find it and actually watch the game. But regardless, stay healthy out there. Thanks for listening and have a great night.
Can't wait to see everybody back in the Ocean First Bank Center.